Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ask ServiceMonster show, where you've got questions for your service business, and we've got your answers. Today's question comes from Mark. He says, "Hey Joe, spring's about ready to warm up, and the phones are going to be ringing. Any tips for closing those deals?" So I'm super duper excited, like so excited, almost excited as when we opened up this business. I've been working on the sales process internally in our own company now really hard for the last 6 weeks or so. And man, the team that we've got coming in is just ridiculous. So yeah, I'm very familiar because we've been going over every little step in our sales, lead acquisition, follow-up, drips, texting, the whole nine. Going through everything. So I'm very familiar with analyzing this stuff again recently and coming up with a couple things that I think might help you out. The first bit is we've already done 2 videos on sales. Number 23, an anatomy of the sale, and number 43, landing commercial clients. Megan will post a link in the show notes. Now, before we get started here, let's do just a little bit of housekeeping. You'll see my friend John Mapes and Marilyn Mapes from My Flooring Warranty were kind enough to honor me with an award for helping them and helping the industry do a handful of things. So thank you so much, guys. Very much appreciated. And this will be going back on our shelves. I've also received a couple inquiries about putting stuff on the shelves or, on me while I'm on camera. And that's fine. We don't take any cash for doing any of that. You want to send us some swag, you just go right ahead. 4204 Meridian Street, Bellingham, Washington, 98226. And heck, while we're at it, subscribe. If you're not a subscriber to our YouTube channel, we produce a handful of shows with immense value. We hardly ever do any sales pitching here, so subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay informed. All right, so back to Mark's question. Now, before I look at a process and try to make improvements, I will often go to null. It's an engineering term that I use quite a lot when we're looking at a problem to solve. It basically means obliterate everything, all preconceived notions, all existing processes, all current thoughts and mindsets. Now, relating this back to the sales process, there's a handful of things that you can look at even when starting at null, because after you obliterate everything, you want to start to introduce the knowns. And one known is the psychology behind the buyer's purchasing process. It's important to start with the process and the psychology behind it, because if you understand that, then you can make best use of the tools that you have to achieve the highest probable income, which is what you want, in the close. Now, if you go doing some research on your own here, you're going to find a couple different flavors. The most popular is a 5-step. I like the 6-step approach a little better because it introduces a little subtlety in the concept. Number 1, identifying the want, need, or problem. For a service provider, you are a problem solver. No one calls you when they're standing on clean carpet or looking out brand new cleaned windows. They call you when they have a problem. There's a spill on the carpet, they have company coming over and they want to look super nice, there's an odor, or whatever various other reasons people call a service provider after they've identified, I got a real problem here. Now, generically, this identification of a want, need, or problem is going to come in 2 flavors, internal or external. Your internal needs are pretty self-explanatory. I'm hungry, I need to eat. I'm sick, I need to take medicine. These are internalized. You say, I have an internal need and I need to fulfill that need through a purchase. The external process is a little different. These are chasing the Joneses, friends and family. A friend has a video game that you saw that you didn't know you needed until you saw it. This also comes in the form of solving a problem or stress, making their lives a little easier. Yeah, I'm standing on dirty carpet and I could go get a rug doctor, although I don't know where that thing has been and it's going to keep my carpets wet and I know it doesn't do as good of a job as a professional. Once they've identified the problem, then they're going to identify a need, right? They don't want to go with a rug doctor. They prefer to bring in a pro. All right, so this step of the process, what can you as a service provider do to ensure that when they identify the problem, they think about your company? This is where brand building is really important. No amount of marketing is going to make them call you if they don't think they have a problem. If they don't have a problem, they're not interested in your ad, your flyer, your postcard. They don't give a crap about that stuff because they're not in the market to make that purchase. So, establishing a strong brand presence by delivering value is the big win here. That's how you're going to build up your brand and get attention from people who don't currently have the problem that you solve. But when they do, they will think of you. Creating a brand that's synonymous with the products and services that you offer by delivering value to prospects is the big win and big key to making sure you're part of the selection process. Side note on tracking lead sources and how this applies. Track lead sources? Cool story, bro. It's great and I encourage it, and we have a lot of tools in ServiceMonster to do it. But if you're doing your brand building correctly, guess what? They've seen you in 6, 7, 8, 12 places before they actually executed on the decision. And each one of those markets, each one of those attention grabbers, ads, or pieces of content is part of the sale. So you may mark that lead source as the postcard that made them execute on the decision, but they wouldn't have done so if they hadn't seen your value Facebook ads or some of your Google and YouTube placements. The second step in the buyer's process is research. Once we identify we have a problem we need solved and that we're going to solve it through a service provider, we start looking at the service providers that could potentially solve the problem. They'll start with who they know. So again, brand building, important. If they already knew about you, their research is going to start with you. Now, if they don't know, or they're not locked in, or they're not already a client, which you have been keeping top of mind, right? But then they'll go to friends and family, the internet, Google, groups, bulletin boards, Facebook groups. Are you there? This is where they're going to go, asking, hey, where's the best place to get my problem solved? Okay, so where can the service provider take advantage of this step? Again, brand presence before the choice or research is done, very hot. Number 2, being as omnipresent as possible, knowing where people are going to make this decision or to choose these particular set of options, and being there is probably a good idea. Now in this step, you're going to want to deliver both value and ads, because once they've identified they have a problem, getting an ad in front of them is the perfect time. All right, number 3, the buyer's going to go through some choices and options. They're going to take a look at all the different service providers that can solve their problem and start weighing them. They're going to be comparing a handful of things, including price, service availability, and personalization. If they want it green, if they want a special type of cleaning service, if they want to get both their windows and travertine cleaned. Like, what service provider is going to be personalized enough to get their exact problem solved? How can the service provider take advantage of this step? Number 1, clear communication. How about answering your phone? They're going to be kicking the tires, right? Running down lists. If you don't answer your phone, forget it. They're off to the next choice. While you're talking to the client, don't obfuscate details. Like, if they ask you questions, answer them. Now, I know a lot of service providers won't necessarily give price over the phone, but you better have a ninja way to take care of this if you get price shoppers flowing through the pipeline. Now, if you're not catering to price shoppers, that's a demographic you don't want to service, awesome. You can certainly use this as a filtering mechanism. But at the end of the day, if you want to close those deals, you're going to have to be very clear in your communication so that when they're weighing their options, you become the obvious choice. Also, don't meta message here. Make sure you're super clear. They're going to be comparing you against anybody else and anybody else's friends or family related to whatever service they're trying to get. Educate them. Share with them the experiences and maybe even circumvent their choices by understanding what they're looking for and demonstrating how your company can provide it better than anyone else. Number 4, in the buying process, the selection. Now, this is separate from the actual purchase. And believe it or not, a lot of people will identify their problem, make the decision to solve it through a provider, have the service provider selected, and still not execute. So this is an interesting kind of in-between phase between the client saying, okay, I've done my research, I know who I want to go with, and maybe I just don't have the cash or the time right now, or for whatever reason, I just am not going to pull the trigger until some magic thing happens. Now, service providers, there's a real opportunity here, and this is where retargeting really comes into play. Obviously, you can overuse retargeting like crazy, but if you do it right, it's super effective, which is the period of time between the customer making their decision and weighing their options and closing the deal. During that period of time, you can motivate them to move in your direction by giving them well-placed content and identifying those problems they're trying to solve. All right, step number 5, obviously, the purchase. They are finally convinced, they have the time, and they have the cash, and so they book the job. As a service provider, your job here is to smile, book the job, and then execute. Kill it. Look, your close isn't at the booking of the job. You're not closing just this sale. You're closing all of them. You want to position yourself to execute on this, provide the best service, solve their problem, and make them go, whoa, amazing customer experience. They can definitely help me solve my problems in the future. Now, there's a 6th step here, and very few people execute well on it, and it is the post-buying decision. We all reflect on the purchases that we make. Sometimes we're happy. Sometimes we're not sure. And other times we have buyer's remorse. Why did I make that purchase? Why did I get that service done? It was a little too expensive or it didn't come out the way I wanted. Setting expectations here is paramount. Making sure that when you leave, the client was satisfied by making sure they understood what they were getting even before you processed the job. But there's something else here. Did you know that 80% of client dissatisfaction can be eliminated with a phone call 24 hours after the job? Maybe follow up with an email too, but it's that personal touch that really means something. That phone call that says, Mrs. Jones, I just want to make sure you're satisfied. Now that goes a long way to somebody kind of scratching their head, wondering what happened the day before, or wondering or starting to doubt the solution that you provided. It's amazing what that little touch will do to seeding them as being your person forever. That's it, guys. The buying process in a nutshell. We all go through it, and it's pretty well documented. This is a psychological process and the steps that all of us take. And sometimes they'll be within minutes of each other, like if you're at a store and weighing your options that are on the shelf. Other times, like buying a house or a car, this may take a month or two, really going through and identifying what it is you want and how you want your problem to be solved. Your customers are no different. Your prospects are no different. So understanding the psychology and steps they take can go a long way to helping you win. So wrapping up, 3 steps here. Number 1, it's good to take a fresh look at your processes once in a while. Boil them down the null and build them back up, making sure that whatever small tweaks you can make, you do, because sometimes it's those little changes that make the biggest impact. Number 2, empathy. Put yourself in your customer's shoes. Go through the entire buying experience and post experience in your mind as you would if you were your own client. And make sure you do that on a fairly regular basis to stay in touch with your process. And number 3, much of this game can be won up front by building your brand and delivering value. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for your attention. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, go check out the demo, and give us a call.